Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We're continuing in this chapter. We're still in the chapter 29. We're going to continue where we left off this past week, which is on page number 74, the Hatam. It's on the top of page 74, about 3/4 into the chapter, and again you can see it in the corresponding English as well, which again it's the Hatam and the reason. So we continue. Basically, just to recap, what we were holding as the Beinoni demonstrates his upsetness, his anger, based on the Maimorei Razal, the saying rather, Maimorei Razal, the saying of our sages of blessed memory, that a person should la'olam yargiz adam yetzer teva yetzer hara. The expression is that he should get angry. Yetzer teva should anger on the yetzer hara. He brings a pasuk in brachas from Tehillim, rigzu v'al tichto, that through rigzu, through becoming angry at the opposite party, the yetzer hara, that causes al tichto, that prevents a person to sin. And he Alter makes it clear, it doesn't mean, even though you're dealing with a loud and determined, perhaps even tumultuous voice, kel rash v'regiz, but nonetheless it remains b'machshavta. It doesn't mean that you stand and scream verbally. It's b'machshavta, very loud, but yet in your conscious thought. And what are you telling the nefesh about the yetzer hara? You are evil, you are bad, you're meshukov, you're metuav, in other words, you're abhorrent, and etc., and different names which are chachamim call. These are not stam names, but names which are sages of blessed memory call the yetzer hara. And you complain, you're angry at the yetzer hara. Well, till when are you going to cover up over this truth? Or when are you going to obscure the truth? And me and you know the truth of what is and what is real, and there's nothing covering up truly over covering up truly. There's no true concealment of the reality of God. You're putting this concealment. You're demonstrating a different picture. You're demonstrating that Olam is real, Zman, which is a composition of Zman and Mokim, as we explained, elaborated last week. I know the truth. Ani Hashem leishanisi. Hashem is not. It did not change me to say, just like before Hashem created the world, we all understand and appreciate. There wasn't anything else other than God. Hayahu b'shmei bilvad, like it says. And so too now, even there's a world. Nothing has changed. It's the same God, right here, now. A God which is transcendent of time and place. Hence, He's not part of this fabric of time. He creates this fabric, the fabric of time and place, but He's not part of it. As it says, it's brought down as well. And that Hashem is the place of the world, which means there's no other independent energy, which is called Mokim Zman, world, etc. It only comes from the Asar Mamoris, which Hashem infused into creation. Hashem's energy, Hashem's speech, which He Dvar Hashem Shemaim Nasu, Hashem's words, which He infused in creation. But Hashem is not limited to that. He stands transcendent of that. Hashem B'chvei Devatzmi is transcendent of time and place. Hence, He is here exactly the same way as prior to Hashem created the world. Hence Hashem is here in His full glory, and I know it, and I could see it, and I could appreciate it, and again, as mentioned before, the Alter Rebbe brings in the end of this very chapter, the Yetzer Hara knows about it as well. Just he's given the mandate to eclipse that information, to obscure that information, to hide that information, to conceal that information. But that's why the Yid is told, get upset, get upset, bring clarity. Why does he want someone to get upset at something? He wants to bring clarity to a matter. And I don't mean to say someone in the context of a negative attribute, which is called kas and regiz, because sometimes it says Moshe got upset because it wasn't anything personal. It was to clarify the reality of God in that particular incident with Moshe Rabbeinu, halacha, and so on. So in this case, it's a positive. The Chachamim wouldn't tell us to do something which is negative. Chachamim tells Leilam yargiz adam, because it's a positive expression in our Avodas Hashem. It's a need. It's a positive need to express yourself with anger in our Avodas Hashem from the idea of the Yetzer Tov over the Yetzer Hara in its demonstration of this clarity, v'ri chushis, which this is a vision which is so evident to me, again, to the Lev Shalikis, to the godly consciousness, or to the godly soul, and the true consciousness of the Yid, the Beinoni. And in this case, again, as we mentioned before, and Alter Rebbe mentions the famous Zohar, which we're going to, God willing, read in the end of this Pedic, that even the Yetzer Hara is very clear of the true reality, again, of God, which nothing has altered, nothing has changed from before He created the world, and even after He creates the world. And Hashem L'Shnisa, for that matter, we say it every day in davening. Ato kedim shni v'ra'elam, ato achal nivra matam shni v'ra'elam. It's the same Ato. And zeu sherish kol aveda. And we know that a person should be successful in his Avedis Hashem. It's important to have that riyah, to have that conviction, inner conviction of this above-mentioned reality, which gives him the ability to do his Aveda with constancy, with continuity, without any interruption. He should be passionate of his Aveda Hashem. And that itself is why the negative force, the Yetzer Hara, wants to cover that up. Yeah, there's a God, Shmiya Levado, like he says. Shmiya Avono. Give a class about it, explain it, that it's only Shmiya, it's something that you heard. There's no comparison to the conviction of someone, information someone heard, as opposed to something you see. And the Yid knows that in order for him to be passionate about his Avodas Hashem and be scrupulous in his service, in other words, to be careful in every single mitzvah, mitzvah saseh, mitzvah leises, small nitty-gritty stuff, not small, but the details has to be exactly so, like, it's commemorating the mitzvah mezuzah, putting it on my door. Does it have to be mamish, something mahudir? So where does that come from? It comes from, there's a God, Shmiya, I understand, I know, I could even give a good lecture of the reality of God, but it's about the Re'iyah. It's about the conviction of the reality of godliness, the here and now godliness, which is similar to Re'iyah, which is kind of Re'iyah, like I see it. Doesn't mean Re'iyah Sayinayim, which is also, we get there as we come closer to the Mesa Mashiach. It says, Ki ayin bi ayin yiru. The eye, the physical eye, will see evidently the reality of God, and therefore that goes together with Ruach HaTumah. We notice that eventually the entire impurity which tries to conceal that reality will be removed. Again, these why these psukim are really interconnected one to each other. But in our Avedis Hashem, it's the Re'iyah, it's the conviction and the level of seeing, which ultimately keeps us going and understanding that these details, God is right there, here and now, and expects from me, B'nai Hashem Nitzov, a love, not only as part of society, the community is based on the Gemara, that Lefichach Niber Ha'adam Yichidi, man was created as an individual, different than any other part of creation, which were created, Zachar u'Nekeva Bara'isa, when it comes to man, who was created individually. The Gemara says, Leimelach, to tell us that Lefichach Niber Ha'adam Yichidi, again, Leimelach, to tell us that we are all Yechidim in the context of our relationship with God. Just like Adam Rishon never thought, well, what's the difference what I'm going to do? There's billions of people out there. Never thought that way for an obvious reason. There wasn't billions of people. There wasn't millions of people. There was nobody out there. And eventually his actually deed made a difference. We're still rehabilitating from that little that fruit that he took from that very tree. So that little difference, that little apple or whatever. There's different opinions what the fruit was, but that fruit which he took a bite in made all the difference. Still in therapy from that one action. So where does that? In the end of the day, that's our story based on this Gemara. The Eibishter cares about every single thing we do, we speak, we think. But to have that in front of our eyes, or this ability to go on with our Avedis Hashem, it's important that we have our connection, our relationship to God, or our conviction to God is in a level of Re'iyah. I see, I know it in a way of as if I see it. And that's why it says Zev Sherish Kol Aveda, to be constant with our Avedis Hashem. In other words, in mitzvah say, in the diuk, in the details, and to do everything right, and to stay away from everything else Hashem says not to do, may it be in action, in speech, and even thought, which is again something which is so much more subtle, but that's where many times it counts. What I look at, what I listen to, these are small details, but again, this is part of our mandate to keep a clean mind, and 100% clean mind, eyes, ears, etc. So this comes in order to have that to have that, to perpetuate and to have that constancy in our Avodas Hashem. It's important, it's crucial, it's essential that our connection, relationship to God is in a way of re'iyah. In other words, the conviction is in a manner of seeing, and that itself is the Yetzer Hara wants to cover up. Shmiya, yeah, you know about it, you understand it. I mentioned before, you can even give over a nice drasha about it. But is it Riyah or Shmiya? And the Yetzer Hara doesn't want to completely tell the Yid there doesn't exist. Sometimes he doesn't want, he goes to different extents. He tests his waters in many different times. But in the overall, from a Yid, yeah, it exists. But it's removed. It's an abstract concept. And that's what the Chachamim tell us. Yargiz, bring clarity through your regis, through your upsetness. Bring clarity to the Yetzer Hara. And I know the truth, and you know the truth, and we'll both understand that we will move on with this conviction of the way of Riyah. That's when I will be able to be to maintain this healthy, well anchored Avodas Hashem without interruption in my Torah, in my davening, my learning Torah, my davening, my Avodah, my Gemilas Chasadim, my noticing what I have to notice, being scrupulous in mitzvahs aseh, and being scrupulous in mitzvahs loiseh, so this which I'm not allowed to do, and not to notice things which are not prohibited to notice. This all comes, as it says, El Sheidish Kol Aveda. And the reason, and we go on again today, Vahatam, and the reason why it's important to bring this clarity to the Yetzer Hara, because in the end of the day, once you bring that clarity to the Yetzer Hara, you'll be able to triumph of the Yetzer Hara. Meaning, Yetzer Hara has much power, as we know it. Causes us anxiety sometimes with his constant lust stuff. He doesn't leave us alone, which that's his mandate. In action, speech, thought, eyes, ears, etc. So it seems like it has so much power. Its power is so potent. But it's similar. So what am I going to gain if I'm going to say, come on, let's see the true picture. When you will do that, you will indeed succeed to present this clarity to yourself and eventually, ultimately, to the Yetzer Hara as well. That it shouldn't bother you so much. It's like that you're opening a door and it's a very dark, pitch dark room. You're intimidated by the darkness. You say, this is like I can't do anything here. But the healthy person knows, strike a little match, tiny match, and you'll see the darkness will disappear in a second. And as much as it's intimidating at the outset, but you know that you have the right tools, strike that match, and gone with the darkness. And you strike another match, or bring a little more light. The darkness, as intimidating as it was, it overwhelmingly intimidating at the outset. In the very beginning of the outset, it'll be gone in a second. Once you know, and the healthy person knows, it's just a matter of opening a flashlight or striking a match. And the same thing, the Yetzer Hara presents itself with a lot of force and energy, and it's at times can be intimidating. But the Yid knows that it's all about the koach of cheshech, of darkness, which darkness, you don't chase darkness with a broom, you don't try to fight darkness just with any other way. You don't try to battle and combat darkness, you just open up a light and the darkness disappears. And the same thing in this case. The reason is, he says, that you'll be successful with bringing that clarity to get rid of the darkness and the obscurity of the Yetzer Hara and the presentation of the Yetzer Hara, like we mentioned, is because be'emes ein shum mamashas klal b'sitra achra. Because the truth of the matter is, they don't have any true mamashas, any true independent tangibility or potency. Umemela, consequently, nitches mipnei ha'er, nitche mipnei ha'er, it's pushed away because of the light. And in this case, the godly light, like any darkness, is expelled by light, and so too over here, even though it does have much energy, for that matter, it vitalizes it vitalizes all the impure animals. Where do they get their koach? We spoke about it in the past, and we had the chance, they had the ability. I think 2 classes ago, when we were dealing with this, we touched upon this idea that there's the anything impure over here in this world receives its energy from the impure forces. Again, you could look there, and again, we had it a few times in the past. But in this case, so back to our context of it, certainly it has koach, it has abundance of energy. For that matter, it vitalizes. It is the source of energy of all the impure, the world of impure Bali Chai, where there's many. You take even one Bal Chai, there's a lot of koach. Take a lion, or anything, even a non-kosher animal. There's a lot of koach to it. It's a mitzius, and it receives it, and we're told the reason why it's tamei. No, the reason why we have to stay away from it because it's tamei. The reason why it's tamei because it's intrinsically connected to the shalosh klipas hatmeis. In other words, it's receiving its energy from these impure forces. And hence, what does this tell us? That the impure forces does have much koach, chayis harbe. It vitalizes the balachayim atmeim and the nefashis of umis akum. In other words, the souls of every Gentile, as we said, especially those who are associated with Agvedas Kechav and Mazalis. It's not the average Gentile, which we said has some taiv, or there is a Gentile which has some taiv based on the Rambam, which mentions the notion of Chasidei U'Misa'elam, and we have the ability to extract their taiv by convincing them or introducing to them the Sheva Mitzvah, the seven Noahide laws, which we have the mandate to be a Eir Lagoyim. We have the mandate to teach them based, and again, it's a Lach in Rambam. The Gemara brings it that we have the mandate to give over the message of the universal seven Noahide laws, and the Goy is we're able to transform the Gentile and introduce him to the light of elokus, of godliness, not the light of Torah mitzvahs. We do not proselytize, quite on the contrary. We believe everything is precisely calculated. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a Yid, and a non-Jew is a non-Jew, obviously with the exception of halachic conversion. But yet our mandate is to be a light unto the nations, and to try to find the good which exists within the Gentile. But yet, based on the Gemara brings, Alter Rebbe brings in the end of the first chapter of Tanya, that the nefashos u'misayv the gilulim, especially those who are associated with idolatry and denial with the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and again they live their life accordingly as well, in that fashion. So where does their nefesh come from? Based on this Gemara, which Alter Rebbe again elaborates in the end of the first chapter, based on this Gemara, it also comes from the shalosh klipas hatmeis, the three, and the forces of impurity. So, which again another demonstration of their potency, their koach, that they're mechaya, they give so much life to all the balachayim atmeim and to all the nefashos of all umis avdi, and also the gam nefesh b'hamish b'Yisrael kinal, and even the animal soul which exists within a yid, which doesn't come directly from shalosh klipas hatmeis, but it has the klipas nega dimension. In other words, less tuma, more nega, more the light. Therefore, we have the ability to transform the animal soul. And we again elaborated on this notion based on the mission of Ahatas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzarecha. We have the ability to transform our nefesh. Hence, if we have the ability to transform it means to say there is some nega, there is light within it. For something which has no light, you cannot transform. We gave the example, a non-kosher piece of meat, I can't eat it, make a bracha on it, eat it for a godly sake, and a heavenly and godly sake, and then continue with my heavenly and godly, implement that heavenly and godly objective. I'm going to learn Torah with the koach, with the energy which I received through that consumption of that non-kosher piece of meat as an example. Do a good deed with that? No, you're not elevating it. Quite on the contrary, it's going to bring you down to shalosh klipas hatmeis. Therefore, we stay away. We absolutely stay away from anything which is directly associated with the impure forces. Again, with shalosh klipas hatmeis, we don't have the ability to transform it because there is no nega, there's no light, as opposed to things which are neutral, the apple, the orange, something which it doesn't have on its own. It's not like a pair of tefillin or a sefer Torah, but we have the ability to transform it, and we can make it again, like the Alter Rebbe's lashon there, ke'oila ke'karban, it can become like a sacrifice, it can become a davar kaddish. But again, we're not going to elaborate on this whole idea on its own. We have done so, where the Tanya was dealing with that in the previous chapters. Chapter Zayin, 7th chapter, which everybody's welcome to go back. You could always see it in the previous, as you click with Tanya, or you have it on the TanyaOnline.com. And the advantage again with the text And you have all the chapters up till this very class on that website. Pretty organized, and anybody could easily go back to those. They're divided, even each chapter, one could find it easily. But getting back to what we're saying over here, this is the greatest demonstration that that there is a difference between the apple and a non-kosher meat. The apple is not holy, but yet it's not unholy. It's neutral, and therefore I can transform it to become a oilo, a sacrifice, if I eat it with l'shem shamayim for a godly sake, and I make a bracha, and I follow through with the shamayim, I do a godly act, if it's learning or davening, with the energy that I received through eating that apple. The apple is elevated. That itself shows that it's not like a pair of tefillin, as of yet, till you transform it. But conversely, it's not like a non-kosher piece of meat, because again, that was the whole idea of klipas neiga, the neutral klipa, which stands in between the shalosh klipas atmeis, the lower than the absolute impure forces of evil, and the other side, lahavdil, to kedusha, to the forces of the absolute kedusha, sanctity, divinity. So, but in the same, and therefore we have the ability to transform. Therefore, the Mishnah says you can transform even Yetzer Hara. The Nefesh Bahamis, the animal soul, can be transformed because it doesn't receive its life from Shalosh Klipas Atameis. It receives its life force and energy from Klipas Nega. Again, one could see it in those very chapters 7 and 8, etc. But what Alter Rebbe is telling us over here, that part, the tumah which does exist and is associated with my animal soul, it is also ultimately coming from this same energy of Shalosh Klipas Atmeis. In other words, it initiates from the forces of impurity. The only thing is, it has a bit of nega, has the filter of nega, and therefore it's minimized, the tumah is minimized, and there is the possibility for me to tap into the nega, to the light, to the good, and ultimately transform the entire animal soul. And this is ultimately our mandate as Yidden, to transform this neutral klipa of klipas nega. With this we minimize the energy of Shalosh Klipas Atmeis, the core essence of the impure forces, again elaborated in those very chapters. But what he's saying over here, that in this context, is that the Nefesh Baham, the impure forces, do have much strength and much energy, for they're doing all this above mentioned. The vitalizing, the Balachayim Atmeim, and the Umasagay, the Kichavim, and also the Nefesh Baham Shabi Yisrael, which exists within it, it also receives its energy from it. So this could be very intimidating. In other words, we say just demonstrate that clarity and everything is going to be fine. The answer is yes. Despite its great energy, it's similar. Like we said before, that you open a room and it's very dark, it'd be very intimidating. You say, well, this is very dark. I can't do anything here. I'm going to probably trip and fall and lose myself because of the darkness. But again, the healthy mind knows that it's a matter of just introducing some light, and there goes the darkness at once, in a split second. And that's what he continues over here, that it might have this great and potent energy. Nonetheless, all its light, all its energy, it's not on its own. It doesn't have any independent energy. It all comes into the kedusha. In the end, there is no independent energy. Only kedusha, holiness. The core of holiness, again, is God Himself, which is the shadish, the source, and the root of every chayas, every energy. The only thing is, it's the way the godly energy ultimately is concealed and condensed to a degree that, and again, it's naturally with Hashem's decision, that He allows the impure forces to carry this enormous amount of energy. Like Dr. Rebbe writes in the past, based on the Talmud and the whole Yesodis v'amudim, the bases and the beams of Yiddishkeit, of the notion of Bchira Chavshis, equilibrium, which exists between the two forces, and Hashem wants the Jew, the Yid, or the person, to choose the right over the wrong, as opposed to being programmed just with the right. If there's solely the flow of the godly energy and there is no impure forces, there is no Bchira Chavshis, there's no freedom of choice, like in the world of angels, the world of Neshamis, all the way up there. In this case, down here in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will allow the impure forces to maintain their kind of autonomy, for the ultimate reason of Bchira Chavshis. Hashem wants to reward the tzaddik and vice versa, etc. He gave us the schus gives the merit that we can serve Him despite our challenges. So He allows the challenges to come into act. He allows the challenges to have kind of their force and their energy, their autonomy, but yet in the end of the day, it's all the Zakis Yisrael, it's all to bring schus to the Yid, that he's able to demonstrate his alliance with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with his own freedom, his and her own freedom of choice, which is again the greatest schayk, the greatest appreciation, in the heavens above, greatest appreciation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we serve Him with our freedom of choice, despite we're challenged with all these challenges and obstacles, etc. So, but if you look at the core essence, what is the core essence, the source of this energy? It's a notion of autonomy. It's not, you don't have your own independence. It's all about Kedusha in the end of the day. And therefore, essentially, virtually, this whole energy is completely batel, means to say it stands in essential submissiveness and subjugation and nullification in the face of Kedusha. Just like the nullification of darkness in the face of physical light. Strike the match, the darkness is gone. It means to say that the darkness stands in complete bittul, complete nullification, complete submission in the face of the physical light, and so too, physical air, light, and so too, essentially, in core essential levels, meaning to say, if you think deep, if you go to the core and essence of where does this this energy come from, it only comes from Kedusha. There's no such thing that there can be independent energy other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed it to be filtered, to have the tzimtzum, this concealment over the overt and manifest light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and allowed it to ultimately descend or evolve itself to kochos of tumah, to impure forces, and so on and so forth, which seems to have much of it seems to have as with their autonomous energy, they seem to demonstrate themselves and present themselves very loudly and many times very disturbingly and so on. But in the end of the day, they don't have any independent forces. No such thing, independent force. Because Baruch Hu is the only balabas. So Kedusha is the only balabas. So if the Kedusha is the only true authority and the only true source of energy, so by definition, this cheshech, this darkness, is completely batil, nullified, stands in full scale of nullification in the face of the Eira Kedusha, the light of Kedusha, similar to darkness which stands in a complete submission in the face of the physical light. The only thing is, in the face of the holiness of the godly soul which exists within man, which is Yetzer HaTov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it the permission, the yechelis, and the ability, like B'yatzma connected, to stand and arise and present itself against that godly soul. And what for? And as we all know it, you need to bring proof about this, how it stands in it on a constant basis. No, just a person, speak that, do that, don't worry about it, be good, think that, look there, etc. What's the point? So it has a certain ability, it has a certain koyach to tantalize the Yid, to stand up against the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul, stand up against the truth. But what's the purpose of HaKadosh Baruch Hu did that? And then allowed that to happen. Adam, that man should be able to arouse, or man should arouse himself or herself, to strengthen themselves upon and on the nefesh habahamis and the animal soul, or the Yetzer Hara, which comes with this presentation, lashpila, to bring it down, to humble it, to humiliate this energy, al shiflus and michas ruchay, through him in his own experience, to his humbleness and demonstrating his humbleness and the crunch of his own spirit, as we said before. It's not another party, it's by the Beinoni. The Nefesh Bahamis is in full tact, so when I bring down my spirit, I stand with a Lev Nishbar, broken heart and a broken spirit, with the Michas Ruach and Shiflus. With that, I bring down the Nefesh Bahamis, the chutzpah of the Nefesh Bahamis, the presentation, the powerful or the determined presentation of the Nefesh Bahamis, of the Yetzer Hara. The Niv's Abayt of Nimas is shameful in my eyes. And Nimas is even the expression of mi'isut, disgust, in my eyes, again, as we elaborated this on the previous of the class before, the two classes before, and again, this part of being the suggestion how we're able to bring down that chutzpah, that determination of the nefesh bahamis, of the animal soul, or as it hosts the spirits of impurity, ultimately bringing down these spirits of impurity. When I do so, when I arouse, there's arousal of the tata, of the yid down below, which is a common expression certainly found in Chassidus, Pnimis HaTorah, Kabbalah. There's the Yisarusa L'Sata, and Yisarusa L'Leila. The Yisaida is the arousal of below, and there's the arousal of the on high. So when I arouse, there's the Yisaida, the arousal of below, which means I stand with that strength, with that determination. Or in this case, when I mashpil ruchi velibi, my spirit, I bring down. In other words, I stand with humbleness, as I humble my spirit and my heart, and so on. And with this, I consequently bring down the yetzer, the energies above of the impure forces, or with this reges, with these other different tactics, as the Alter Rebbe suggested previously in this very Pedic. What I do is I arouse the arousal of above, to fill what it says, that from there, from your chutzpah, from your gavhus, meaning to say from your, like the lashon of the pasuk is, that you arouse yourself, you arise like an eagle, misham, from there, ritcha, I will bring you down. In other words, the Eibishter sees that the Yid does everything he can to submit the Yetzer Hara, to bring down the determination of the Yetzer Hara, of the Nefesh Bahamis, the animal soul, of the Yetzer Hara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does the same on high, instantaneously. Doesn't take time. You make that decision, or you're mashpil yourself. Again, as the different suggestions which were given before, including this vart, what Alter Rebbe says in these very few lines, again as a continuation we learned last week, to bring out and to extract it to this re'iyah, this clarity to yourself and even to the nefesh bahamis, the re'iyah nelukus. So the Eibishter, and again you follow through with your determination, HaKadosh Baruch Hu milmaila, instantaneously. In Mishameritcha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings it down again in the counter forces, the counterparties on high of the nefesh bahamis, of the impure forces. HaKadosh Baruch Hu immediately brings it down. HaKadosh Baruch Hu removes its power, removes its authority, removes its rulership and its ability. HaKadosh Baruch Hu removes from it the energy and the permission which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it originally, to elevate itself against, in the face of the light of the holiness of the godly soul. V'azai, and when HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that, based on our decision down here on this realm, consequently it becomes completely pushed away, and annulled and pushed away, similar to the nullification of darkness in the face of physical light. So when we make our decision, or we follow these different tactics that Alter Rebbe gives us over here, down here, instantaneously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Misham Eritcha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down those forces, and they lose their ability, they lose their force, they start crumbling. And every time we do it, we reduce their energy more and more. And eventually we lead to the time that the person could elevate himself, as we know that that's the way the person could perhaps HaKadosh Baruch Hu would find in his service a reason to upgrade him to the level of the tzaddik. And what is the level of the tzaddik? That he has eventually no Yetzer Hara. And it's not something that we strive to be, we wish to be so, but in our service to God in our service to God, as long as we don't feel that upgrade, we know that we are still Beinanim. In other words, the Nefesh Bahamis is still intact, and we still have the challenges and the obstacles and so on and so forth. But the more we exercise the Aved of the Beinani, in other words, to Chas v'Shalom, not to violate, not in action, not in speech, not even in thought, and again, to do everything we have to do on the positive mitzvah say, in action, in speech, and in thought, the more and more we reduce to some degree the energy of the Yetzer Hara, It doesn't mean we'll get rid of it if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't decide to upgrade us to the level of the tzaddik, but something we do definitely we do something, as we explain it again, and the Alter Rebbe brought this in the end of chapter 27. But more so, we could perhaps, and even individually, HaKadosh Baruch Hu finds a reason. I want to upgrade him to the level of tzaddik. What's the level of the tzaddik? The level of tzaddik is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely takes away the ability, the Yetzer Hara, to stand in front of the Aveda of the Yid, which again, we can appreciate it, but we don't have an adequate understanding, because most of us are not tzaddikim. We do have, we're more the Beinanim. In other words, our Aveda is Aveda of the Beinanim, because we know we do have a Yetzer Hara. That itself tells us we're not even bordering, we're very, very far from any Aveda of any tzaddik, if we're not only honest with ourselves, but it gives the ability, in other words, the more we bring down the Yetzer Hara over here in this world, with the different ways which are suggested by Mamari Razal, which the Alter Rebbe, which are from our suggestions of our sages of blessed memory, which Alter Rebbe elaborates over here in this very chapter, the more the counterpart, the more the higher realm, the counterpart of the Nefesh Bahamis, of the Yetzer Hara, which is the impure forces, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings it down. Misham Meritcha. And the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings it down, so individually the person becomes elevated, becomes more aligned with a godly reality. And collectively, that's why the more you can do Torah mitzvahs, they ultimately deserve. It becomes not something like, this is a cause and effect process. The more we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the quicker we come to the era of Yemei Mashiach, where it says, I'm going to completely obliterate the spirit of impurity on a collective level, an entire, not only by Yidden, but throughout the entire world, which is the ultimate purpose of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why He created the world, that the Yid, through his service, should do and reach that level that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, could ultimately settle in, and the world becomes a home, an abode for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here in a very overt and manifest manner, there's no place for tumah. That goes together, that there is no impurity, but it comes to the Aved of the Yid, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu established that it should come to the Aved of the Yid. With this, we'll finish the text of this class. I just want to say, Be'ezus Hashem, I believe that by the next class we'll be finished this Perek. It was, as you notice, is a longer chapter. I think it's the most classes we had on one chapter. Yet, interestingly, just to give a little preview, the Alter Rebbe gives a very beautiful, or demonstrates from a beautiful story, a story which we suffer from till today, but a story which we have in the Torah, which is the story of Meraglim. The Meraglim, the Alter Rebbe points out and gives so clear and evident proof from different details in the episode of the Meraglim, which demonstrates again so clearly, as it unfolded then in that very story, all this above mentioned information which is written in this chapter, and ultimately, as the Alter Rebbe culminates, that when the person is brought down, when the person brings clarity to his nefesh, and ultimately is mashpil, he humbles and humiliates the Yetzer Hara and the Nefesh Bahamis, the impure energy. Instantaneously, this is what happens on high, and eventually it reflects in our conscious mind and reflects in our Aveda down here below. And again, Alter Rebbe brings a story then of Meraglim, which demonstrates this idea so clearly. Have a wonderful day.